really appreciate being asked to this conference. I am an academic. Actually, I started out in industry, but I'm a PhD in physics. I am now my day job is research director at Biosphere 2. That's Biosphere 2. It still exists, and we're using it for ecology research and controlled ecosystems, very large, like a rainforest, for example, and an ocean. But I'm not going to talk to you about that. I'm going to talk to you about my volunteer activities. And I hope to learn a lot at this conference. My one message to you is we need tools to measure impact of research. So here are a few of my volunteer activities. I am co-chair of the Report Review Committee of the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. That is a 36-member committee from all three academies. That is the quality control of reports coming out of the national academies. And we need to measure impact of the reports. I am also a board and council member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. That is a much broader academy, started in 1790. The National Academy of Science was started by Abraham Lincoln to advise government. The American Academy was started by John Adams in 1790, so way before. It's located in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It has arts, industry, science, and everything else, medicine, whatever. And they do quite a lot of work and studies. And they have thought a lot about what it means for impact, so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. I am also past co-chair and current treasurer of the Inter-Academy Partnership. That is 147 national academies that are in partnership, and they do international studies. And to get even more complex, I am a co-chair of the 10-member group that is appointed by the Secretary General of the United Nations. There are 10 people in this group, obviously. That is part of the technology facilitation mechanism that's putting on a conference next week at the UN, which is called the STI Forum, Science, Technology, and Innovation for the Sustainable Development Goals. All of these organizations need to measure impact, and they all want to be more impactful. So the products of these organizations, you can read them, but they're consensus reports that are for policymakers. They are decadal reviews of what has been done in a certain science discipline and what is important for funders going forward. There are international regional comparisons, such as food security in different regions in the world. That was the Inter-Academy Partnership. The Inter-Academy Partnership, by the way, has also done a study on, I call them junk or predatory journals. So you might want to look at that because it's quite an interesting study. And it's extremely, what is the word? I will say important, but specifically in the developing world. And there's the other things that academies do are scientist-to-scientist dialogues. For example, in nuclear proliferation and arms control, when the governments can't talk to each other, get the scientists talking to each other so they at least know what's going on. And all of these things have impact in different ways, but those are the products that you usually might think academies are doing. but there's a lot of other stuff. Convenings of stakeholders for informal discussions where nothing is written up, but government, university, business, intelligence community, all of them can talk to each other and learn stuff. There are workshops, there are fora, like the STI Forum of the UN. There are conferences, standing boards, a lot of work going to support scientists in exile, human rights, international standards and governance of technologies, also very important, specifically genetic engineering, AI, that kind of thing. Humanities indicators, which is the American Academy produces for the US, and support to youth and community projects. There's also Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, which is a journal, PNAS Nexus, which is a gold open access journal, which is new, and Daedalus, which is a journal which is open access of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. And the American Academy actually publishes anthologies of poetry, histories, recordings, statements, pamphlets, posters, all sorts of stuff. So the academies are actually quite active, and the audiences are very diverse, including the general public. For example, the National Nutrition Standards, which the food industry is anxious about, Higher Education Administration, sexual harassment in the academy. Let's see, scientific community on ethics of science, the decadal studies, school boards, science standards for education. So I will just tell you, one of these esteemed organizations has actually written down what they think impact is. And it's, I think, pretty good. But the measures of impact of the American Academy are, number one, inform or change the debate and discussion among experts or the public. And there are the normal impact measures, such as reach, website visits, downloads, hard copies distributed, earned media, media impact, citations, interviews, op-eds, all sorts of social media. But youth and education and training, and here I wanted to use my notes. One example is 2 issues of Daedalus, the American Academy journal, which is really a scholarly journal that goes to every member, but is also open access. It was called New Dilemmas in Ethics, Technology, and War, fall 2016 and winter 2017. It was used in classrooms in at least 6 universities and military service academies, and training level for mid-level UN staff, and a platform for dialogue and discussions with UN agencies, and is used in Geneva even now. There's citations in legislation, there's testimony in Congress or other countries. There are dear colleague letters that either mention the reports or because of the reports or because of a workshop or whatever. There are references in scholarly publications and meetings, briefings of, for example, congressional staffers or industry CEOs, and testimonials by people such as Elon Musk, influential. The other thing that the academies and the UN both do is influence, advocate, and influencers This is way beyond what the Academy does. And they use Academy work or citations. The Academy can convene some of these influencers. Sometimes it's pretty indirect, so how does the Academy know if the report itself is in, for example, congressional legislation, or people are holding up the report as they're talking to audiences, then somehow you know that it's having some effect. New policies, practices, programs, or investments start, not just in the academies, but in government, in communities, whatever. We need help. So some observations. Currently the measures, so the American Academy has actually written down something they think they want to have impact over. What we currently have is not stories, but anecdotes. And the staffers kind of look to see, oh, we just saw that report mentioned by, New York Times, or it's in legislation, or Ghana has decided to go and do a roadmap, which is exactly what we suggested in this conference. The impact can be short-term, like media coverage, and there are often a lot of media coverage on the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine reports, which can be either positive or negative media coverage. And the impact can be both positive and negative, so you have to actually measure that. And it can be very long-term. A report can sit on the shelf for 10 years, nobody touches it, and then it is put in legislation. New people come in charge, and somehow you have to monitor all of that if you're trying to figure out, are you having impact? Many Academy reports are truth to power. For example, Congress requires in legislation, there was one where it required a study by the National Academies and the new IT system installed by the FBI. The FBI had to pay for it. They hated it because it told the truth, which was it was a disaster. And the academies have to do that. And they must bring respected independent voices, as hopefully all scientists writing their papers also must do. So I just wanted to set the stage for something beyond you just publish a report or you just publish a paper, which then gets cited in a report. How do you make sure, how do you measure that you're actually having impact? So with that, I will allow people who actually have tools to speak.